been it for them. And now I do think that it's time to get the deal done. I think Keylor Navas would make this a beneficial deal for both, as United would have a good goalie to step in. And let's be honest here, you lose Ramos, you bring in Varane, it's just an increased development for a guy who could be the best center back in the world in a couple of years. So I do think it's a great deal for both sides. Now, on the other side, a guy who some people think is actually the best center back in Spain, Nicolas Otamendi from Valencia. A great year for Valencia. Excellent. All around great. Plays for the national team now in Argentina. He's been starting in the Gold Cup, a team that, of course, lost in the final. Very talented guy, of course, valued at £35 million, and they don't seem to want to budge on that valuation. Manchester City has jumped in now as a potential favorite, as they may have increased in their. And this is what Jorge Mendes said, and Jorge Mendes is 90% of the time right, that they probably have more of spending room in terms of a contract they're willing to offer him. However, it does seem that Otamendi has been pretty insistent on United being the place he wants to be playing. And you know, if you land Otamendi and Ramos, that's a great center-back combination. The question, of course, Jake, does it happen? Does it happen?
I don't think Ben Hall allows this not to happen. You know, Otamendi, it's rare when you can have a center-back who is so gifted, and it's not because of his height. You know, he is only 6 feet. You know, some of the better center backs in the world, it's because they're so tall. So when you can get this sort of status of world-class center back, because, and despite the fact that you are only, of course, in quotation, 6 feet tall, you know you've got a talented player in your hands. Manchester United have bought a title for this year, except for the whole, defense part. And I think that that's how you solve this. I don't think Manchester United let Otamendi slip away.
Well, really quickly, let's address because me and you were just talking about this before the show. Let's address the whole buying the title thing. Name a team that has won the title, besides United under Ferguson, in the past 20 years that hasn't bought the title.
Oh, no, I don't say that criticizing.
Oh, no, I wanted to address that.
You have to buy the title. I have learned, sadly, that that's kind of how it works.
I mean, let's be fair here. Before Van Gaal, before Moyes, in the era of Ferguson, United were not known as a spending team. They did build it off of youth. They would buy players who were young for cheap. You look at signings like Wayne Rooney, developing a guy like Ronaldo out of Lisbon, Tevez when he was a lot cheaper. They did make a lot of cheap moves back with Ferguson. They were very smart, very financially savvy. Of course, when you bring in a new management like Ed Woodward, like David Moyes, you have to really start to revamp. And now that you've got a sugar daddy like Roman Abramovich, you really do have to spend quite a bit of money to win the title.
A sugar daddy would spend more money on his football club and less on his ridiculous yacht.
Abramovich,
Groke's family cruise sounds like it might be fun. I want another on his yacht. And if you don't, you're lost.
Whew. I'll have to do that.
You'll have to do that. I guess I'll go on there.
If you insist. Some rumor that has been pretty persistent over the last couple of years. Thomas Muller headed to Manchester United. Of course, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge saying there is no way we're selling another player to Manchester United. However, when United launch an €100 million bid, which is, of course, according to rumors, we don't know if this is true, it's a lot of money, and it could be enticing. I'm going to start off here. I don't think this move will go down. I think if I were playing true or false again, this is definitely false for me. I think he's a great player, and I think that kind of money any other year would land Muller. However, as Rummenigge has said, he doesn't want to allow Germany to concede to England, and that's how he feels it's going down. I don't think they'll sell him. And I think that Muller's such an important player to that team. You look at a guy like Götze, who we will talk about in a second. That's a guy who is expendable. He's not the face of Bayern. Muller is a pretty big part of Bayern Munich. I don't know if that would go down well with the fans. I think they're already at his throat with the selling of Bastian Schweinsteiger, so I think the selling of Muller would just make it even worse. Jake, I don't know if you agree with me here, but Muller is an integral part of Bayern Munich, and this is a team that is very much in the hunt for a Champions League title every year. Do you think this deal has any truth to it?
I don't buy it, and Manchester United's not buying. Look, at this point in time, we've just heard about how Germany feels threatened by England, and they're taking all of their players. Man, you just got Schweinsteiger. There is no way that Bayern Munich let Müller, the face of this team, or one of the faces of this team, leave. I just cannot imagine it happening.
All right, I do agree. I think that the chances of it happening are slim to none. Moving on now, Benteke to Liverpool is official, and it's a little much. 32.5 million for a guy who, while he's played well, is not near worth that money unless he's scoring 25 goals a year. They did need a striker. Given how poorly Liverpool perform when signing aerial players, I would assume this is going to go down as a massive failure, a la Andy Carroll. Do you have a different opinion?
I mean, I like Benteke, but I don't really have a problem with this deal. They've got the money to spend now after selling, of course, Sterling to Manchester City. Why not go on Benteke? He's a young guy. He's got a lot of upside, and this could make Brendan Rodgers end up looking like a genius. And if it fails, so what? I mean, you already finished 6th place this year, and Liverpool's standards. Is it going to get worse?
It could. If this guy goes down as a failure and they waste the money for Sterling, Brendan Rodgers is about to get himself fired. I'll tell you that. He is on the cusp of getting himself fired. And I think he's a good coach. But I think the issue is that, and this has been the issue with Liverpool for a lot of years now, they are one of the worst spending teams right now in Europe. They have no idea how to spend their money. And it's cost them. Badly. You look at a guy like Daniel Sturridge. This guy, we don't know when he's ever going to play consistently again. So that could be a big issue for them. I do not think he's worth it. Sure, maybe he's worth the gamble, but $32.5 million, I don't buy it. All right, moving on across Manchester to Manchester City. They bring in Sterling. Now they're looking at Kevin De Bruyne as the guy to play opposite of Sterling. Would be an excellent signing. However, they may be running low on money. You can't sign De Bruyne and Otamendi and basically every other player, especially when you spend such an incredible amount on Raheem Sterling. That deal, of course, probably one of the stupider deals in my opinion. I think he may be a talented player, but worth that kind of money, 49 mil, I'm just not buying it. United bought Darmian, Schweinsteiger, and Schneiderlin for only £3 million more. That seems like a much better deal. However, City are looking at De Bruyne. He's a great player. Jake, before you say whether or not it'll happen, because we've been doing that and it's kind of dismissed a lot of this thing, how do you think De Bruyne fits with Manchester City?
I think he can fit. I think they're going to try and force him in there. I don't think this shoe fits, but if you kind of jam your heel in a little bit and kind of forget that it's it's a little small, it'll work out. I think they'll be able to make it work.
All right. I think it would work as well. However, I don't think the deal is going to go down. Look, I feel like maybe next year it'll go down, but I feel like, you bought that guy in Sterling for that much, and it just doesn't seem to me like City really are gaining enough to spend that much money again. I think it would be it'd be in their better interest to bring in Otamendi. Let's be honest here, Mangala was not the answer, and as much as we all love Demichelis, he's not really the future. When you're graying on top of your head, it's time to bring in a young option. And I just don't think they'll gain as much from bringing in De Bruyne as they would from an established center back. All right, on to the next player. Another Bundesliga attacker, Mario Götze. He has said he would love to play for Juventus, and it's been a little bit of a jumble. Now Liverpool is said to be in the mix. I'll start this off. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I call rubbish on this whole thing. I do not think Bayern Munich is going to sell another player right now unless it's a lower level guy. These guys are still a Champions League winning level team. I don't see a reason for them to sell at this point in time unless they do bring in Vidal in the process. Past that, I've just got to say, don't do it. I don't do it. Mario Götze, he's become a hero to Germany for reasons all Argentinians know, and probably most soccer fans. But I don't think it's going to go down. Maybe next year, but for right now, I think, look, you've had Götze for a short amount of time. Leave him in the club, maybe later. Jake, what do you think?
I think when you're in the position of Bayern Munich right now, you have a lot to lose. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You already lost Schweinsteiger. Now even more rumors are swirling. It's just so not worth it at this point.
All right, well, that wraps up transfer news. So we're going to move into competitions. And before we do Gold Cup... Yes, Jake?
No, I was...
Before we do Gold Cup, we do have to update them on International Champions Cup. Sure, it may not be the most exciting thing in the world. Nonetheless, there are a lot of people out there who are big United fans, big Chelsea fans. Chelsea fans, it's time to cover your ears.
No.
It's time for Chelsea fans to cover their ears.
Did they actually?
Today in the International Champions Cup, in an absolutely shocking result, the New York Red Bulls win 4-2.
A soft drink.
Loic Remy scored on the 26th before Castellanos Rivera scored in the 51st to equalize. By the way, every Red Bulls goal came after halftime. Tyler Adams scored 19 minutes later, 3 of them, by the way, in the last 20. Tyler Adams in the 70th, Sean Davis only 3 minutes later to make it 3-1. Eden Hazard would cut the lead in half in the 75th, but 2 minutes later, Sean Davis would score his second for the brace, and Red Bulls win 4-2. Once again, Chelsea fans, do not overreact. Juventus lost to LA Galaxy last year in this, and they would go on to make the Champions League final. So it's alright. But nonetheless, it's a bit embarrassing. I don't think we had a Pep Guardiola where Mourinho refused to shake their hands because even though I don't like him, he's not as much of a baby as Guardiola. Alright, headed over now to the standings. It's a weird year because we've got all these different ones. We got the ones in China and Australia. So real quick, Australia, it'll come down to Real Madrid against Manchester City. The winner will go home champion of Australia of 4 teams. And then Real Madrid goes to play in China. But that's the small one. On the other side, you got PSG, United. We've got New York Red Bulls, Barcelona, Club America, LA Galaxy, Benfica, Chelsea, Fiorentina, and San Jose Earthquakes. Right now, atop the table, tied at 6 points, PSG and United. New York Red Bulls in their first game pick up the win, followed by Barcelona, Club America, and LA Galaxy all with 3. And at the bottom of the table, Chelsea, Fiorentina, and San Jose Earthquakes. Chelsea is tied with San Jose. I know they've played only one game, but they're tied with San Jose Earthquake, which is a bit disappointing. I mean, even if you were Tottenham, Jake, if you had lost to New York Red Bulls, you probably would have been disappointed too, right?
No,
Oh, no.
I would have said, well, did Kyle Walker get injured?
Oh my god. Ah!
Hamstrings. His hamstrings.
Alright, he would have been disappointed, and everybody knows that. Alright, now on to the Gold Cup. And before we get into the Gold...
May I? Because this is ridiculous. And I have a conspiracy.
We kind of do have to update them on the score of the...
Yes. That's what I'm doing right now.
Alright,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to inform you that El Chapo Guzman has escaped from prison to threaten every single referee that is working at the Gold Cup to make sure Mexico wins. God damn it. First we had Costa Rica, which even got hashtag no era penal.
You know what? But you do know why they gave it to them, right? It's repayment. It's repayment for Netherlands. It's gotta be. It's gotta be repayment for Netherlands.
Okay. Do they need to be repaid a second time? First of all, a ridiculous red card in a first half that, as the commentators on Univision called it, caliente, 0-0, vamos a medio tiempo. 0-0. Noah's rolling his eyes because, you see, I have no Spanish